because like I know a lot. There's a lot of guys I know like are in the kind of business online coaching space and all that kind of thing. And I suppose all their role in all of their earnings into property, like into real estate. That's where they go with it. That's obviously the main investment driver that has been the main driver over the last, well, decade, century, you could probably say. But it is, yeah, the tide's definitely turning with Bitcoin coming into the space and people starting to understand it a bit more as well and trying to, it's difficult, I suppose, for real estate, as you say, well, as you just said, emotional attachment is what they're used to. It's what was seen as the, wealth producing and, maintaining and generating vehicle as where to put your wealth. But yeah, how quickly it will change. It could happen quite quickly. If you look over potentially a couple of decades from now, like what is real estate going to really look like? It's going to be.
Yeah. Well, that's a conversation I had with a friend who's, and loads of people out there in this situation as well, of having to think about where they're going to live, obviously, in the future, but can they afford their own house or should they be renting, especially as a Bitcoiner, you're thinking like this. But you could end up getting yourself into, wherever you live in the country, 300, 500,000 of debt today for a property that could actually be worth less in 10 years' time, 15
Mm.
years' time. And that, now, I don't know how quickly, again, as you say, how quickly this will happen, but if you had a real estate a property that you bought today and you racked up 500,000, half a million euros, half a million pounds, whatever it is, in debt, you could actually see that rise for 5 years. But as more people catch on to Bitcoin, that could actually go the opposite direction. And you could end up again with a break even property, 500,000, uh, 10 years from now, even though at one stage it did peak maybe 750,000, just making up random numbers here. So
Yeah.
you kind of see this peak and then it actually comes back down as more people catch on it. So I agree, it's not going to happen. Like property prices are still going to go up because a lot of people are emotionally attached to it. It's been the vehicle, it's been good to people for a while. But the more people that catch on and are starting to say, um, you know what, this real estate investment isn't worth it, it'll start coming down over time. And it only takes, and obviously Bitcoin going up makes it easier to invest in Bitcoin. So and buy and hold Bitcoin, and it's just much easier process. So and what happens if you buy something now and you see that rise at the start and then it starts coming down in price and you're actually in negative equity over time? And that's not to kind of scare anyone as well away from real estate because a home is very important. But if you're relying on it for value and future value and taking equity out of it in the future, it might not be there. But again,
I
it could
know.
be 20, 30 years. But
Yeah. I think there'll be kind of like an equalization. Obviously, the more they continue to print fiat, real estate prices will continue to rise potentially in that respect until, as in Bitcoin is demonetizing real estate, where the flow of that fiat printed money will flow into Bitcoin, and then there'll be like an equalization where the real estate market will probably flatline, and then, as you say, probably start to taper off over time, in dollar terms or euro or sterling terms. No,
right.
it's an interesting thought process to go through, and most people won't or can't foresee that because again, they don't see this paradigm shift that Bitcoin brings into the space.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not sure how people will react to that. It's like when if and when real estate or property drops to that utility value, like there could be a sharp decline in price over time.
Yeah, make it affordable to everyone. But
Mm.
I would kind of hesitate, like people, even if you do have your home and you bought it, like some people want to change in home, sometimes an upgrade or whatever, family expands, you just want a different setting or whatever, and you can still add, sometimes a couple 100,000 on the a current mortgage just
Yeah,
for a move, and that, again, will you get that back? Like I know it's not always about getting it back, as I say, like you pick the home for the home, but could
yeah.
you rent in that time? Could you rent a home and then if Bitcoin plays out the way it should play out, then you could actually get it at a lot less cost than what you're paying through a
Yeah.
mortgage over time. So
Well,
it's
it's hard. It's a thought process. Like I went through that within the last 2 weeks, basically that exact thing of, we're always kind of looking around, well, mainly my wife, at properties and looking at houses, and she actually spotted one that was a good option for us potentially down the line. But you've always me personally, and even Sarah, to definitely is a larger degree now than she would have been a year ago. She's got the concept of understanding Bitcoin and having that in the back of her mind. So after a few days of emotional attachment to this potential new property, where you look at it and you kind of consider, adding more onto your mortgage, and then when you do the costing and you do the kind of stepping back and having a look at the macro, what's happening in the world, a little bit about like what's Bitcoin bringing to the table versus what the property is and your family life and environment. The logical part of your brain takes over, I think, as well, and realizes, well, at this moment in time, with the state of the market, the state of the world, the actual momentum Bitcoin's on currently, and sort of the phase that it's in within the cycles, maybe not the best option right now. So, yeah, you have to reason and logic your own way through that, and it depends on your own personal circumstances. Obviously, if it's required that you want to move and get a nice house where you're putting more onto your mortgage, but it's better for your family life, then fair enough. You got to live in the now as well, but it's a difficult balance. You're kind of projecting forward into the future with Bitcoin and pricing in terms of everything, but you also have to live. But yeah, it's a balancing act, and you just got to do what's right for yourself.
Personal preference, I suppose. Yeah,
Mm,
because if you wait and you go back and people are religious about cycles and know they've played out that way, I don't think it's going to play out that way
yeah,
forever. But
me
you could
neither.
end up messing up thinking about cycles rather than just focusing on the bigger picture. But like people could say, well, I could hold off and buy a house and buy a house in 4 years' time. But if you have a family and the space that you want, the right space, the right setting, like it's 4 years of maybe kids and stuff having a life that they want, and your partner, wife, yourself even having that home. So it's completely personal choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people have built memories in houses as well. So I get it. I get it. It's a difficult one, but I think if it's purely an investment, I don't think it's wise at all.
Yeah.
I think it's over time, it's gonna become more apparent. But as a home and a family home and things like that, I think you have two options. You either rent or somewhere, and you think that Bitcoin's gonna play out the way it is, or if the only option is to buy it, then it's probably gonna be a sentimental or emotional reason, and that's all right if a home's very important.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think in general, and as you say, it's like people are emotional, in markets, and when they're putting their money into anything, they can be emotional. Um, and real estate is only one example of it, but I think at the minute, I don't like talking about altcoins or shit coins, if you want to say. I don't know if YouTube's will censor us for saying that. I know some YouTubers call them ship coins just so that it doesn't pick it up as well.
That's true. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I was just going
but
to let it go with it.
yeah, easy to get distracted in that and lose focus at the minute. And I know Donald Trump has brought out his new cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
and and for him it's done very well. For some people it's done very well. I just checked the price of it before this in the last 24 hours, it's down over 40%. So some people have got absolutely wrecked, and some people have got absolutely filthy rich off it. But the whole thing is, if you're under that, that's fine. Again, anybody can allocate their money where they want to, especially if it's disposable income that they're not going to rely on, then that's their choice to do. But I think people are losing focus at times during these parts of the market, and I've seen it before. I fell for it originally,
Hmm.
and it's kind of different. Like I don't know about you, but whenever I got into it, it was all about the technology and the promise of technology and the promise for being able to transact decentralized way. And I didn't like you can't very rarely you understand Bitcoin
Hmm.
straight away. But to me, it was all about the technology. I understood Bitcoin's use case plainly, but I didn't understand everything else. And in 2017, I got caught up in a lot of ship coins. But it was for the technology. But this is daft at the minute. Like it's meme coins. There's no use case for it. It's people clearly gambling, and that's it. Like it's all right to get
Let's
a
see.
marketing message around new tech. Not it's all right. But you can see why it happens, for people to get a marketing message and somebody's got a nice website and the promise of this in the future, and this is going to be the future of technology, and you get caught up in it. And that's not justifying me doing it in 2017, but you
Hmm.
can see why it happens. But everyone knows that a meme coin is nothing more than a, you know, yeah, like and it can be replicated too. Like how many meme coins can you do? It's not proof of work. It's strange, like it's strange behavior, but it's probably not unusual for this stage of a. And again, I know I'm referring to cycles and maybe contradict myself, thinking there's not going to be cycles, but that's where we are at the moment. It's probably
It's just
not uncommon for this
mm.
timeless cycle.
It's just taking the opportunity. He's an opportunist as well.
Mm.
It's that kind of concept. He's got something. He's put something out there, and a load of people have jumped on board with it. And as you say, they're gambling. You're putting money into something that I think I read briefly. I saw a tweet about it or on X. Um, was it did they hold 80% of the tokens as well or something silly? Like it was an 80% pre-mine, whatever way it works, and then the rest of the gullible retail investors, if you want to call them that, come in and fire their money at it, and it just went crazy. But no, I was the same. I got, you go through, and again, you have to learn the lessons. I think the pain from going through a few of those ship coins, you could say, but it was the same thing for me. It was, it's looking at the technology. Like I got excited about like an IoT type concept, which seemed very promising and it's still there. It still work, it still functions. It's got a use case if you want to go down that route, but that was the reason I was looking at any of these things was the technology, new exciting ways of potentially distributing, earnings or profits from people going and distributing a new technology across the globe, that kind of thing. But again, when you actually understand Bitcoin a bit more, you realize all these concepts. Again, you don't need a blockchain. You don't need a currency, a token for it. It can just be a centralized, database for these types of technologies. Whereas when you actually really understand Bitcoin, you realize that the only real blockchain or time chain type concept is specifically for hard sound money. Um, and then all these other things just become noise. And I think, yeah, like there's so much noise now, especially the last few days over this with Trump coming in, being sworn in today. It's just it's gone a bit crazy. And people, I think I'm seeing people, within the Bitcoin community as well, they're starting to kind of become irate about it and really annoyed about it. But again, it's distracting. It's just a distraction. You don't need to, don't give the time and attention to these things. They'll play out. It'll pass. Sure, it hasn't even been mentioned. I don't know. I haven't heard it mentioned. Obviously, it wasn't mentioned in his speech. It hasn't really been mentioned on mainstream media that I've seen. It's just been glossed over. But as you say, like they had made quite a bit. Was it? I don't even know how many billion the market cap went with it, but it was quite high. And
Yeah.
I think they sold off quite a few million as well recently. But yeah, it's just that noise. It's that like that article you wrote, the blog post, wasn't it? The signal and the noise. Was that yourself done that too? Yeah, it was. Um, it's just we really just need to focus on the signal. It's the Bitcoin, focus on Bitcoin for what it is and what it means for our futures and for money going forward. And all these other things will always come and go, and people will get wrecked and learn lessons and move on.
Yep. Bitcoin's got the longevity, like, as you say, these come and go, and you've seen it many times over and over again. And I think there's a couple of people that did this study as well, like maybe in a first cycle or something, that a new coin is there, it might outperform Bitcoin. But after anything at longer than 3 years that's available, can't never outperform, not never, but hasn't outperformed Bitcoin so far. There might be one or two exceptions in there, and that kind of goes back to a point that we were chatting about earlier, actually on picking stocks as well. Like how do you pick the right stock out of thousands of stocks? Like there may be something that outperforms Bitcoin over a certain period of time again,
Yeah.
but
And
like
and in
it's
fiat terms, not even just, not in comparison to Bitcoin as hard money, but just in fiat terms as well.
yeah, yeah. And like I think when you get really practical about it, and what you said is the example, the best use case for Bitcoin and solving the Byzantine general problem, the double spend problem, it's all money related. It's all related to sound money, hard money, hard coded money that you can rely on. Anything outside that is it's waffle. Like there's
Mm.
nothing there. But even still, like people think multiple, currencies are going to exist multiple, I can't remember what way to say it, multiple chains, are going to exist in parallel and stuff like this. But it doesn't make sense. Like if there's money in a transaction that you can send, receive, and store it, that's all it needs to do. It doesn't need to do anything else fancy. And once you have that, it's like running about and spending, like you have to go into Target, but you have to buy Target coin before you go in there and spend it in that way. No,
Mm.
why don't you just use the money? Like, why don't you use Bitcoin on Target? Why don't you use Bitcoin here? Why don't you use Bitcoin there? Why would you go like you need to transfer it onto Amazon coin to like imagine running about with Amazon gift cards and spending it here and there. Like it just doesn't make sense. Once you've perfected money, you're just going to use money. It's impractical to use anything else. Like so, if
Yeah.
Bitcoin solves the money problem, then there's no other need for any other token on any other blockchain. And as you say, it doesn't scale as well. Like there is going to be centralized applications, always centralized platforms. Like let them be transparent and say, yep, we're centralized. This is what we offer. Come and
Mm.
buy our product, invest in our stock, whatever it is. But Bitcoin will be the underlying money that is used in every transaction. The other thing, Alan, too, as well about this like noise that's going on at the minute. I don't even know if Trump knows what he's doing. When it comes to this. Like again, he's smart, opportunist, but he's probably listening to other people. And I actually, I'm not a fan of some of the people around him. Like there's some smart guys, obviously some very savvy guys when it comes to business, but when it comes to understand Bitcoin, is it David Sachs? I've seen him on podcast before with Chamath um, and a couple of other guys, and they're like, I don't know how to describe them, but there's a lot of craft going on there in the background, and definitely deceiving people, and
Yeah.
a lot of pump and dumps around that. Like, and I would say he's an advisor of Trump around this. But I'm not sure if Trump would had expected that would have happened, and
No.
I actually don't think that he realizes exactly what all this is. But
No. I, yeah, I totally agree. Like even from listening to his speech in Nashville, you realize he didn't understand Bitcoin. He's associating crypto with Bitcoin, and I don't think obviously Trump wasn't the person that went and organized this Trump coin and put it out there because he wouldn't understand how to do it. It was that team around him, whatever the different members, different people that are involved. They're guys that are probably just out to make as much money as quickly as possible, even, in that short space of time, and to create something that, brought a bit of an impact and a bit of a stir to the market and caught attention. Again, it's going to be a marketing team as well. There's going to be a marketing drive, and there's a perfect way to capture attention. It can be positive or negative headlines, doesn't matter. They made a bit of money from it, quite a bit of money, at other people's expense as well, which is again, it's that zero sum game thing you're extracting. It's that system. It's the same. It's a fiat system. It's a system of extraction, and that's what all this crypto crap is. These coins, these meme coins, all these NFTs, and all this nonsense. You're extracting from other people, whereas Bitcoin's the total opposite from that. So I think it'll be a slow learning curve for many people within the administration, potentially even for Trump himself. They're going to make mistakes. In my mind, they've already made a mistake,
Mhm.
but it's a learning curve, and I suppose when they're doing these things within such a high profile environment, more and more people will start to realize what's what. So it maybe putting a positive spin on it, it may just bring more Bitcoin adoption sooner, hopefully,
Yeah,
potentially. But yeah, it's
it's I can't remember who it was this week as well, or not this week, it was actually before, but I heard somebody quoting the person saying it, but it's like, businesses and countries, like at the end of the day, are led by people. Sometimes if they're new to this space, sometimes they'll have to shitcoin first as well before realizing and make mistakes. Like and like it actually shows you how impressive somebody like Bukele is,
mm,
El Salvador for getting this, sticking to his guns straight away and understanding it very, very well. And I think they actually, again, not a fan of censorship. I like to see the free market play out, and like as you say, people make mistakes and then you learn from them and then never do it again. But I think he did put up some policies where basically no shit coins in El Salvador, like no endorsement for them or no company set up there. I don't know exactly what it was, but he's a clear path and what to do. But it's impressive because I would say a lot of other people are coming along now, and they'll maybe try and replicate the same thing now that Trump has done. I'm not surprised in what Trump's done in the path that he's
no,
taken in his
no, no.
administration. But at the same time, it can happen on any level. Like,
But yeah, I think what you said as well. I think it's the advisors. It's the people that are whispering and talking in his ear. You look at Big Kelly, like obviously, I would say like Max Kaiser had quite a bit to do with that. Was sort of adamant, and obviously Big Kelly really took what he said to heart and trusted him in many respects. And whoever other people were there advising as well, like there was other people, but the fact that he didn't go and you get all these companies coming in, marketing teams, centralized cryptos, etc., trying to push their projects and their currency within El Salvador, and that was just as you say, totally cut out from the get-go. Wasn't there a country in or in Africa?
Yeah, Central Republic of Africa.
Yeah, yeah, because it was
Central African Republic, I think
Bitcoin
it was. Yeah,
legal tender, and then all of a sudden there was a load of shit coins appearing, and
yeah.
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I think they seen the Bitcoin brand and thought this would be a good idea. And then
Mm,
obviously per country, I'm sure some of the advisors got hoodwinked by some of the crypto companies and they thought we'll take the chance on this and short term it'll make us a bit of money. But yeah, they lost an opportunity there big time. So
yeah.
yeah, but what's the key message then to stay focused? Like you've been around this space for a while, I've been around this space for a while. Like what's your key message to stay focused?
The key message is as simple as basically just Bitcoin. Focus on Bitcoin. Bitcoin only. Bitcoin is the only thing we have at the moment that can free us from the shit show that we're currently in the economy. It's as simple as that. This is bigger than trying to gamble and make a quick buck here and there. Bitcoin's way bigger than that. It applies and will impact my children, my children's children, and you're talking on a grand scale here, but it's it's something that is so important. You just gotta really, either go and make your mistakes quickly within this space, certainly fire money at stuff if you really want to. Ultimately, 90 whatever percent of people will lose and will be in pain because of it. It's best to skip all that nonsense. And most people, unfortunately, human behavior, you can give people advice and tell people these things, but most people have to go through it for themselves before it really, becomes ingrained. And for me and for you as well, Chris, like we've made the mistakes like through 2017, for me up even into 2020 onwards, around 21, that was the time when I really realized, well, Bitcoin it's way bigger than what most people kind of realize what it is from a surface level. Once you go down that rabbit hole is the key term that we always use, but it really is. You got to go down that rabbit hole, and once you do, it's really Bitcoin only, and just even like I didn't. In the past, you get drawn into stuff. Even listening to what was happening with the Trump coin, and it's 40 something thousand percent. I don't know, increased within a couple of hours, and it's like, well, for a fraction of a second, you're like, oh, if you had to put a few quid in here, you could have made quite a lot. But then it's going back to that fiat gambling mindset, which causes so much stress, time, and anxiety. Like trying to go and look at all these cryptos and this, that, and the other, and trying to pick this and do that, and make sure you sell it before this happens. You turn into an absolute raving lunatic. You don't sleep. It affects your family, your relationships. So just, sidestep all that crap. Focus on Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin, get educated, and then, stay with Bitcoin. That's basically my message. Other than that, what do you reckon?
Yeah, you always love ranting about the altcoins or ship coins as we call them. I think it's yeah, you're passionate about this. I actually don't spend that much time thinking about them anymore. I enjoy a good Alan rant about the cryptocurrencies. Um, but
Probably because of the crap I went through with it. It's like, gee,
yeah, I can feel it. It was painful for a lot of people at that
mm,
stage, and like you said, some I think is important for people to understand too. Like if they want to play about, I think you're saying make the mistakes fast, like fail fast or whatever. But
with
what
small
happens?
amounts of money, yeah.
Yeah, but what happens in these cases, you don't get to choose to fail fast. Like somebody else chooses. Like
Oh,
how
yeah.
many tools are out there? Like you can invest in something today thinking it's some marketing team's going to come along and pump this, but before you know it, even if it jumps a certain percentage, they could rug it straight, and you could be late to it. It can happen so fast. Those lessons, like if you don't learn it and you say, "Oh well, now I've studied enough and now I've learned, so I'm going to pull my money out," it'll be pulled out for you. Like
Mm,
the way to see it, I think, is the way to stay focused is um like again, understanding Bitcoin, understanding that nobody can rug pull you. You know, it's your own keys, your own coins. Anything else that you're looking at in the crypto space, we'll call it, has a central authority of any sort, and you might think, oh, you know, nobody can change it. There's some kind of consensus here. Um, but if, for example, the more people own a token can make changes,
Hmm.
then you're not you're dead last in having an influence on that. And if somebody has an influence on it, somebody has a company, somebody there's a head of it, even if it seems like there's not, if it has some kind of marketing team behind it, then you're on the other end. You're in the wrong side of that
Yeah.
bet. So it's completely risky. The focus is Bitcoin for that reason, and it's to think long term. Like again, there's casinos to gamble on. If you want to gamble, you probably have better odds a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, it is because it's basically what's happening in the fiat market. Like, the amount of, financial products, derivatives, this, that, and the other. It's so complex. You see what happened in the financial crisis that we've talked about before in 2008, how they mucked about with these mortgage-backed securities. Like all these, again, shenanigans is the word I would use, have just been taken, plugged into the crypto space, and it's basically on steroids. And that's where people get really hurt. You get hurt in the normal traditional market, the TradFi market, but if you go into the crypto space and you're trying to do this and predict this, or think that this coin's going to do this, that, and the other, you're going to get burnt. So yeah, it's a learning curve for many, and he's, as you say, like even with the Trump coin there, like how many you think of how many people would have put money into that at that moment in time where it was effectively rugged by 40% all of a sudden, and that's you have no control over that. Once that happens, you're out. So,
Yeah, and I suppose it is early days too, so that 40% is, it could be not a rug, it could be just a flow of the market, and it could go on to a higher price and then a lower price again, and a higher price and a lower price. But like
but what is it? Like, what is it?
over time, yeah, over time, it's not gonna it's gonna go to zero, like given enough time. Like I haven't looked into it. I know which blockchain it's on, and I don't even like talking about the different blockchains. It's just that like I focus on Bitcoin only, but I know the what we're trying to say here is that focus on Bitcoin, but that means move away from the distractions. But there's other blockchains there that I have studied, proof of stake mechanism and how that works, and I think it's interesting in ways, and yeah, I think it's again only going to advantage the early investors and those that hold the most coins. But it's not as secure as well. And I think there's a couple of these blockchains that are supposedly faster and whatever, and they've been down. They're less secure. It's a complete flawed system to use a blockchain like that for transactions. Now, I will say, and you kind of always have to be honest and realistic about these things as well. Like stablecoins are a use case for transferring value from one area to another recorded on a blockchain. But
Hmm.
again, the token you're really using there is a dollar, which is an established dollar. Like you're not going to use any of those other tokens as a medium of exchange or a store of value or anything like that. Like they're making use of a blockchain for a dollar. I think that's a temporary use case for crypto, and the rest of it dies and submits to Bitcoin. There's also a chance that for anybody that's on it, that a lot of the features that people like, maybe NFTs or whatever the hell it is, the people are into in crypto space, they might come to Bitcoin. I know some of them have as well. So if that's like, I think that's inevitable as well, that anything that's maybe useful will be written on the Bitcoin blockchain, layer two, a layer three, whatever it is. And everything just centralizes around all the use cases are embedded into Bitcoin one way or another. So
Hmm.
like, yeah, I think in the long term, all these go to zero. I think there is a temporary use case for stable coins at the minute, but that doesn't, it only lasts as long as fiat lasts, and we know
Hmm.
already that Bitcoin outlasts fiat.
Well, yeah, like they're basically allowing the transition from fiat to Bitcoin. You're transitioning, that kind of concept of what's happening in the traditional market to what's going on within Bitcoin itself with the network. So yeah, stable coins, you know, they obviously do have a use case currently, but as you say, once fiat dies, once currency collapses in that respect and everything flips over to Bitcoin, at what moment in time that will happen, we will find out. But it will take time. But yeah, it's just it's a messy space, a messy time at the moment. There's a lot of mixed signals and messages being put out from, especially from, the presidential changeover here currently. Um, I feel like well, we'll see in the next few days potentially what his intentions are with the strategic reserve thing. If that'll happen, will it play out? With what he did at the weekend, I'm starting to think possibly not. But again, that's maybe not a bad thing currently. It may just be a slower burn. But yeah, it's for anybody just coming into this space, it's a very confusing, potentially confusing time for them to see because again, they're mixing the words between crypto and until that, the differentiation between Bitcoin and the crypto space in general is, you know, more ingrained in society, the more issues we'll just continue to have with politicians and people in the media, just conflating both, well, you could say sectors, conflating Bitcoin with all the other nonsense. So until that kind of becomes more ingrained and clarified, it's just going to still be there's going to be a lot of noise, I feel like there.
Yeah, and it probably is short term. Like it's probably, just a like maybe we're over egging it at the moment, by saying that there's a lot of noise and a lot of distraction. I think for a couple of days there is, and
Well, maybe, yeah.
yeah, but I do think that the strategic Bitcoin reserve, I don't know what form or fashion or a stockpile, whichever way it's defined as in the end, and what the strategy is around that. I think it'll happen. I don't know when it'll happen again, but it's inevitable that all countries will do it, so it's easy for me to say. But I do like I think Bitcoin's future is extremely bright. It's just whether
Mm.
you're going to miss out by getting distracted with the other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not a distraction away from Bitcoin per se. Like I think it's on its own path again. I think it's gonna get the attention that it's gonna get over the next couple of years, for sure, and then it'll cement itself then as uh, the pristine asset of the world, and all that goes along with that. But what you don't want is people getting distracted by this right now and then losing out and having regrets in the
Oh,
future. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm positive. I'm bright on Bitcoin's future. I think there is noise right now that could die away in a couple of days, or
Mm.
it could extend. Like there's a chance as well that crypto will start up again as a industry or ecosystem or whatever way it's defined as. All these marketing teams come on and jump
I
on the
think so.
bandwagon, and that's a distraction.
Mm.
Doesn't again, I don't think it takes away wholly from Bitcoin, but
Mm.
it distracts people from the real message in here that Bitcoin's the only one that's going to change the world and the only one that's going to bring down the fiat system. And yeah, everything else is noise.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's that whole separation of money from state, which is required, and obviously it's the state that's, controlling or having the majority of control over what's happening currently in the moment on the media as well. But no, I think you're right. I think potentially there's going to be more of a bullish sentiment around the crypto space because that term, and as you say, these marketing teams are coming in and probably trying to drive as much as possible. But again, everybody needs to realize Bitcoin doesn't care. Like it simply doesn't matter. All this noise, it can affect you as an individual, your emotions, your psyche, but Bitcoin itself, as a network itself, as that monetary system, does not care. But you will eventually end up having to care about Bitcoin. So yeah, just be careful out there and focus on the thing that's going to really be more beneficial for your future, your family's future, and that is Bitcoin.
Yeah, well said. The other thing, Alan, then, and we'll wrap up soon, is even along what's even happening in the Bitcoin space. I think there's still a lot of noise there, as well. Now, again, there is no full definition of what a Bitcoiner is. Like, there's a spectrum, So what I'm getting at is like there's people that come through it and just want it as the number go up, which is fine. But I think there's a lot more to Bitcoin than that, of course. Um, and I think the focus as well on Bitcoin should be being self-sovereign. I know 8 billion people can't be self-sovereign. It's impossible. But you don't want to centralize Bitcoin into everyone just invest in ETFs, for example.
Mhm.
Um, Again, I'm not against it, but I'm for the message for sure that people should self-custody their coins. If you look throughout history, what happened with gold, um, there is potential that given enough time, the incentives will be, give tax efficient advantages of, uh, selling Bitcoin within an ETF rather than selling it from self-custody through an
Mhm.
exchange. All these things will happen as an attempt, but to me, the focus is self-custody your Bitcoin, make sure you control your private keys, make sure it's done securely, to the right technical level that you're at the moment,
Hmm.
and not get sucked into leverage and collateral too much and lending out your Bitcoin and stuff like this. Like that's another message I think which will come in the Bitcoin space over time. I think now short term it's crypto noise, it's distractions with Trump coin, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think over the long term, like we need like and we do a lot of education around self-custody and the importance of that. I think we need to focus on Bitcoin core principles to make sure that we never get back into a fiat-ish kind of system.
Hmm. I think that the self custody aspect, I think a lot of people are scared of that. They don't trust themselves, which is, you've been brought up trusting banks or trusting the banks to control your money, but that concept of self custody it's something that's quite scary for many, but it's a matter of actually going through the process and learning it. And once you actually do it a few times and transfer and take responsibility yourself, it does become second nature. But I think it's getting into that kind of practice and mindset, which again comes with education. Also, like the options of even doing some form of practical seminars around that or something, just to, I know a few Bitcoin groups do that across the globe mainly, but it's something that people are a bit wary of and just don't understand. But again, they need to have the grasp of Bitcoin, why it's important, why they need it, before they would actually consider the self-custody aspect. Because as you probably know yourself, I know quite a few people have, they just leave it on exchanges. They buy a small amount, leave it there. And it's fine for small amounts potentially if you're willing to lose potentially that if something happens to the exchange. But it is if you're trying to really, save in Bitcoin, you need to really set up a self-custody aspect. It could be multi-sig, whatever, or as you say, whatever you're technically competently, comfortable with. But that does take a little bit of technical know-how and confidence and ability in yourself to be able to do that. But it just comes with practice, like anything.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a barrier for people. So,
Yeah, I think I think there's going to be loads of options how to uh,
hmm,
hold Bitcoin in the future. And again, I'm not against any of them because it's inevitable. Like I have to be realistic about it. But again, I'm for self-custody, and I think as long as not like a certain amount of coins get centralized in one area, I think everything will be fine. I think the dangers are, you know, 90% of the supply ends up in Coinbase. Like
hmm,
custody somehow is not a good thing for Bitcoin. So the options are fine. Even those options make it decentralized in a way. Different countries, different ways of holding Bitcoin. Different countries have ETFs, different countries are holding Bitcoin. Different exchanges are holding it, different individuals are obviously holding it, and then there's probably a couple other, banks and whatever that'll hold it as well. As long
hmm,
as that's decentralized as well in a certain fashion, then it should be fine. But again, I think the primary way of holding Bitcoin should be self-custody, and I would also advocate for multi-sig um,
hmm.
solution as well, which is technical solution, but it's not. It depends on the individual, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't plan on doing this, and we were kind of just meeting up to chat, and we kind of jumped on. We started recording just because we were in a bit of a flow about things and discussing it. But yeah, it's a good conversation to have. Like it's timely, I think, and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, focus is needed
Yeah.
always.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment, so yeah, it's just interesting to talk around the different things, and hopefully people find it useful as well, and just even insightful in any way. And again, questions if anybody is listening, and ask away, ask questions, send them in via YouTube, on our social media accounts, or Instagram, or just email us, a good old-fashioned email. Um,
Yeah,
that's all good as well.
it might be good, and we're just thinking out loud as well. Sometimes on this podcast, and that's fine. Like we've got guests coming up, which are some really interesting guests over the next few weeks, which we're looking forward to. As you know, we do these mini series as well, the bullish series that we'll finish off now in the next week or two. But maybe it is a question for the audience, just for people to give suggestions. Like there's, I'm actually pleased at the some of the feedback we've got and some of the just even the reach out in general from people, emailing us and getting in contact with us. It's been inspiring for us, I think, to keep doing what we do. But yeah, maybe questions from people and say, not as well as questions, maybe suggested topics that people want covered as well on this, and we can look into it. Obviously, you can't guarantee to do everything because we've got a schedule and a plan going forward, but it would be good to maybe address some things as well that people are looking to know more about. And yeah, we'll be happy to give our thoughts on it, even if it's opinion, or if we've looked into this before, we'll do some education around it, and we can also look into it and do research on certain topics. So nothing's off limits, I would say.
Yeah, and no question is a stupid question either, because that's always one of the things throughout my life. I didn't want to ask stupid questions, but once you get past the point of caring, you just ask the question. It's
Yeah, the way you find out
there's no dumb questions in this space, certainly not. But yeah, no, absolutely. As you say, Chris, that's good conversation. But again, the more feedback we get from people, the better, and the more questions we get, the more we can tailor the content as well. Because that's primarily what we need to do. It's getting that content out that resonates with the majority of people. It's answers the questions that people want answered, and we talk about the topics around Bitcoin that people are maybe confused about or not clear on. Then, if we can clear them up, that's what we're here for. So yeah, all good. Good stuff. We'll leave it there for this impromptu episode, but we'll pop it out and hopefully people appreciate it and go from there. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.
Yeah.